네, 그럼 바로 본론으로 들어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 네, 귀한 영상 보내주신 두 분의 해외 연사분들을 모실 텐데요. 오늘 첫 번째로 말씀 들려줄 해외 연사님은 영국의 토비 베레스포드님입니다. 이분은 데이터 스토리텔링으로 변화의 동기부여 서비스를 제공하는 rise.global CEO님이시고요. 저희 나라에도 발간된 인피니트 게이미피케이션의 저자이기도 하십니다. 네, 무한 게이미피케이션을 통한 게이미피케이션의 진화 발전이라는 제목으로 영상 보내주셨는데요. 바로 모셔보겠습니다. 토비 베레스포드님 나와주세요.
Good morning. My name is Toby Beresford. I'm the author of Infinite Gamification. Today we're looking at fitness gamification and all the different ways in which it can be gamified, including football, as you see behind me. Hello, so today we're talking about infinite fitness gamification. How can infinite gamification be applied to fitness, and how is it being applied to fitness? My name is Toby Beresford. I'm the author of Infinite Gamification, which is available as a book in Korea. So I'm delighted to be here today to show you something of what it means to be an infinite gamifier. At the heart of the book, Infinite Gamification, is the idea that scores are at the heart of the most important stories we tell ourselves. All of us, whether we are young or old, think of ourselves in how well we're doing on all sorts of things. Did I have a good sleep? Did I eat well today? Have I got a lot of friends? Am I happy? Am I sad? All of these are actually scores that we are making a judgment on whether good or bad. Now, the interesting thing is that infinite gamification really says that actually we don't just have to inherit the scores that other people give us. We can, in fact, design our own scores and choose how we rank ourselves. And that will differ depending on what is our objectives and what is the context that we're trying to do these things in. So one way of thinking about infinite gamification is to take the very popular device Fitbit and say, well, actually, instead of just using a Fitbit to create for fitness, actually we can use a Fitbit for anything. But today, what we'll do is we'll just look at that whole aspect of fitness, and we'll see how different gamification designers have designed a different gamification program to achieve the same end, which is fitness. Let me introduce the difference between finite gamification and infinite gamification. Finite gamification happens when the program that we're gamifying has an endpoint. So typically you might see this in a competition that just runs for a day, or perhaps it's a learning experience where you get a certificate at the end of the learning journey. Those are finite gamification systems. An infinite gamification system is where the program can continue infinitely, forever. So, for example, Fitbit, the gamification system on Fitbit is to try and do 10,000 steps a day. Now that can continue forever, for as long as we live, because every day we need to do 10,000 steps. So one of the principles of gamification design is that if you're designing for a short-term program where you just want someone to learn something, then finite gamification is the right approach. However, if you want people to adopt a particular habit or behavior, or if you want them to perform to the highest of their ability, then an infinite gamification design is the one that you should choose. When we think about infinite gamification itself, a key principle is that there's always a score. It may be that the score hasn't been properly articulated, but people are always thinking about the score. So, for example, taking fitness, I have a sense in my head of whether I feel fit or not. And that might be a very kind of loose, subjective opinion, but it is at least some form of gamification that I'm doing to myself. It's not very good gamification because I don't know from one day to another whether I'm doing better or worse. Am I genuinely getting fitter or less fit? It's just a sense of, yeah, I feel fit today or I don't feel fit. So now we'll be looking at the different ways in which gamifiers across the world have tried to gamify fitness to make it more objective, more useful for individuals to be able to see whether they are indeed fit or not. Fitbit is an approach that creates personal analytics for an individual wanting to get and maintain fitness. The whole design of Fitbit is opt-in. You don't have to do it. You can choose to use this Fitbit hardware device to track your steps and now your activity and calories. So you as an individual get to choose your daily goal, which is effectively a score. And once you've chosen that goal, the tool will help you track your progress towards achieving it by the end of the day. You'll note that there are no prizes for winning. There's no payment involved in trying to participate in the fitness exercise. It's really about how am I doing against myself, against my own goals. And of course, I get the ability with Fitbit to change. Say, for example, try and do, if I 14,000 steps in a day, or perhaps you want to do less because 10,000 is too much. So it's really really important to see that this is a kind of an opt-in tool that individuals choose. And any comparison with friends is all optional. I don't have to do it. I don't have to see whether I've done more steps this week than my mother-in-law, for example. And Fitbit also helps by providing badges, but these are repeat badges. Every time you do 20,000 steps, you get a badge. So the key point here is that the infinite gamification design on a Fitbit is that it doesn't have to be competitive and it doesn't have to be financially rewarding, yet it still works. And millions of people around the world use Fitbits to try and get fitter. We can see an alternative approach to fitness and to gamification of fitness through the Running World Cup.
The Running World Cup is giving everybody a chance to run for their country. UK is counting on them. South Africa is counting on them. America is counting on them. And I hope nobody's counting on him. The more people from your country that run, the more chance it has of winning. So, can your country count on you?
Join in for free today.
The objective is the same, getting lots of people fit and healthy. But the Running World Cup uses a different mechanic. Here we have an eco-friendly, mass participation virtual running tournament. And in this one, anyone can run for their country. Each person sees their own contribution on their app and they can track their runs with their app or their smartphone or their Fitbit or their watch, whatever they would normally use to track their runs when they leave their house. But this time they can see their contribution, they can contribute their runs to the score of the overall country. So I can see here, this is an example, this person has run 14 kilometres and that has been contributed to the total kilometres run by Great Britain, which is 20,000 kilometres in this competition. And so we have this idea that we're still gamifying, and it's still infinite gamification because the Running World Cup can run every year, and there are no necessarily any sort of prizes for individuals. You do the app does give you a certificate that you can get to record your country's win or ranking, but the whole point really is that there's a sense of kind of community, a sense of camaraderie, and a sense of joy and delight at actually being able to run for your country. So instead of it just being an elite set of athletes, the Usain Bolts of this world, actually anybody can be a runner for their country. So that's the Running World Cup, and that's a slightly different gamification design. So most of us are familiar with the way that gamification and football come together, but I'll just explain it just so we're clear. Football games, people like playing football as it is, but what gets you out of bed on a sunny day like today, and what gets you out of bed on a freezing cold winter morning is something different. So to make sure that football teams and getting 11 players to come out, plus substitutes, plus managers on a cold, freezing day isn't an easy task. And so one of the ways in which gamification is applied to football to make sure that we all get out of bed on a Saturday morning and come and play these games no matter the weather is we develop a system of leagues where teams have to play each other in order to win the league, and without winning the league they risk relegation to a lower league. And so organising football into a gamified set of leagues, divisions, and with winners and losers at the end of each season allows us to all as a group get out and play football on a regular basis. So one way to think about it is that whereas football is the game, the league system is the gamification of football, and it's infinite in the sense that it's designed that you don't necessarily need a reward. The honour of playing itself and winning the tournament is enough. There may be a cup or a prize at the end, but it tends to be nominal. There's no financial value. The way that gamification works is that it keeps people going every year as well. So the infinite nature of the league system allows it to continue right away into the future, as it has already done for hundreds of years. So we've looked at different kind of league structures that people play in teams. It's also possible to use league structures, which is a classic gamification technique, for individuals. And a good example of this is something called CrossFit box leagues. CrossFit is a frightening way of becoming ultra fit by competing against other individuals. And so in this kind of environment, in this context, the leaderboard is all important in that same goal of achieving great fitness. But here we're really thinking about performance over and above simply adopting great fitness habits. So if you look at how CrossFit works, your score is actually your leaderboard rank. So it really doesn't matter how well you're doing against yourself in this example. What really matters is how well you're doing against the others in your box, in your league. So it is ultra competitive. So it's not a sport or a fitness approach that's going to appeal to everyone. In fact, it only appeals to those elite sportsmen and women right at the top of their game. So it's interesting again to see here how it's still gamification, it's still fitness, but actually the design of the gamification program is different. So we've looked at some very interesting infinite gamification program designs, from Fitbit, Running World Cup, football leagues. Finally, I'd just like to mention some other notable ones, which are also gamified systems with that same goal of getting people to be fit. You may have heard of the very popular Park Run, a series of events. And so in this gamified design, there really is no competition between the runners. It's simply the social enjoyment of taking part with lots of other people. And the key gamified mechanic here is the time, the appointment. So that everybody comes at the same time to the same place to do a park run, so in a public park. And it's that shared participation event that where everybody comes together that is the kind of the gamification mechanic that is being used to get people together and to get people to be fit. And of course it repeats every week, and so it can continue infinitely. An important other fitness approach is something called Couch to 5K, which is actually quite a good example of finite gamification, where there's an end goal. The idea is that you start on your couch, on your sofa, not running at all, and then you gradually, in increments, start to do a little bit more running each day or each week, up to finally you can get to the sort of the marker of 5,000 meters, 5 kilometers in one run. And so that's a great example of a finite gamification where someone might be not a runner and is learning a new skill to become a runner. And then finally, we must remember that there are hundreds of weight loss programs, such as Weight Watchers, where people give points for food, which is a gamified approach. Some of them give points for exercise as well. And these are another way of kind of prompting people to get fitter. In this case, there's a lag metric of losing weight. So rather than the lead metric of how much activity you've done, they focus on the lag metric of how much weight you've lost. So again, it's another approach, and you'll find out more about all of these different approaches in the books and how to choose which metrics to use depending on your objective, whether to use a lead metric like how many runs am I doing, so activity based, versus a lag metric like whether I've lost weight, which comes as a result of the other activity. So let's take a moment to summarize what we have learned today in this presentation. The key point is that the gamification design for the same outcome, for example fitness, will look different based on context. The individuals, the community, and the shared objectives. In other words, context is king. And I think this is the key point behind the book, Infinite Gamification, is that when you want to motivate yourself, your team, or your community, you need to design your own gamification system that will work especially in your context. And that means you need to think through all the different aspects of a good gamification design. And of course, there's nothing like going and trying it to see what works. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present to you. I'm very humbled and honoured. If you want to learn more about infinite gamification, you can do so via the book, which is available in English and of course Korean, Turkish, and coming soon in Arabic, at my website www.infiniteGamification.com. I also tweet at Toby Beresford, and I'm also involved in a useful tool that you may want to use, which is an online leaderboard maker called leaderboarded.com, and it's an add-on for Google Sheets. But thank you for now, and I look forward to, I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
네, 실제로 게이미피케이션이 반복적으로 무한히 지속되어서 개선된다는 개념을 바탕으로 해서 일상의 여러 피트니스와 스포츠 상황에 대해서 어떻게 잘 적용되는지 설명을 아주 잘 해주신 것 같습니다. 네, 요즘 카타르 월드컵이 한창이잖아요. 영국 하면 또 손흥민 선수를 빼놓을 수가 없는데요. 영국의 어떤 작은 축구장이었지만 축구장 보니까 또 남다른 또 감회가 새롭습니다.